You ready to go there, Jessica? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Pajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Pajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudrakacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudrakacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavanda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. I think we're on 34. Where's Jessica? Well, maybe Jessie knows. Jessica's not here. Oh, there you go. Is it 34 or 35 we're on?
I think we're on 35. I think we only have one more verse.
One more verse. I don't know. I know this verse. No, page 563 or 564. Yeah. I would remember because this is, I know this verse. This is a very nice verse. All right, we'll do 34, no harm. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 28th day of March 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 13 entitled Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. And we're on text number 34 at the bottom of page 563. Yata prakashayati eka kritsnam lokam imam ravihi chaitram chaitri tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata yata prakashayatyeka kritsnam lokamimam ravihi Chaitram chaitri tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata yata prakashayatyeka kritsnam lokamimam ravihi Chaitram chaitri tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata Yata prakashayatyeka kritsnam lokamimam ravihi Chaitram chaitri tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata. Go ahead, Vrindavan. Yata prakashayatyeka kritsnam lokamimam ravihi Chaitram chaiti tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata. You with us, Bhushan? Bottom of 563? Go ahead. Yata prakashayatyeka kritsnam lokamimam ravihi Chaitram chaiti tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata. Michelle, you want to try? Yata prakashayatyeka kritsnam lokamimam ravihi Chaitram Chaitram chaitri tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata yata prakashayatyeka kritsnam lokamimam ravihi Chaitram chaitri tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata. Word by words. Yata, as prakashayati, illuminates, ekaha, one, kritsnam, the whole, lokam, universe, imam, this, ravihi, sun, chaitram, this body, chaitri, the soul, tata, similarly, kritsnam, all, prakashayati, illuminates, bharata, O son of Bharat. Translation. O son of Bharat, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. Purport. There are various theories regarding consciousness. Here in the Bhagavad Gita, the example of the sun and the sunshine is given. As the sun is situated in one place, but is illuminating the whole universe, so a small particle of spirit soul, although situated in the heart of this body, is illuminating the whole body by consciousness. Thus consciousness is the proof of the presence of the soul, as sunshine or light is the proof of the presence of the sun. When the soul is present in the body, there is consciousness all over the body, and as soon as the soul has passed from the body, there is no more consciousness. This can be easily understood by any intelligent man. Therefore, consciousness is not a product of the combinations of matter. It is the symptom of the living entity. The consciousness of the living entity, although qualitatively one with the Supreme Consciousness, is not supreme, because the consciousness of one particular body does not share that of another body. But the Supersoul, which is situated in all bodies as the friend of the individual soul, is conscious of all bodies. That is the difference between the Supreme Consciousness and the individual consciousness. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So it's interesting, we've kind of come full circle here. Arjuna began the chapter with some questions. He wanted to know what is the Chaitra, the body, what is the Chaitra Gya, the knower of the body, what is Prakriti, this material nature, what is the Purusha, I think the supreme person, and what are their relationships. And Krishna answered exactly what we're seeing here. A little different emphasis, but he says that Arjuna wanted to know what is the field, first of all. What is the Chaitra? And Krishna says this body is the field, and the one who knows the field is called the Chaitra Gya, the knower of the field. And then he says, and I am also the knower in the field. So there's two knowers of the field. And one who knows the knower or knowers of the field and Prakriti is enlightened. So he comes down full circle here. He's at the end of the chapter. And he gives this wonderful analogy. And it reminds me of the second chapter where Krishna is describing the nature of the soul. And he says, Abhinashi tatad vidhi yena sarvamidam tatam. Vinasham abhiyasyasa nakishtit kartamarhati. That which pervades this entire body can never be destroyed. Abhinashi. Abhinashi idam. Abhinashi. I forget the verse. But that which pervades the entire body, and Prabhupada explains in the purport how that which pervades the entire body is consciousness, and it's carried throughout the body by the circulation. That the blood corpuscles are constantly circulating, and they're being replenished with this consciousness as they pass through the heart, which is where the soul is. And that, along with all of the other things that the blood carries, the oxygen, the nutrients, and everything around, is carrying the consciousness. And I always remember when Barbara pointed out, yes, and when you get to the parts of your body that have no blood circulation, like the fingernails or the hair, there's no feeling there. There's no consciousness there. You can cut it off and it doesn't hurt. But as soon as you clip a little bit of your finger that has blood circulation, ouch, because the consciousness is there. So it's very illuminating, forgive the pun. And this wonderful analogy with the sun and the sunshine, that the sunshine is really, you don't think of it that way, but it's supporting everything. Like, of course, we have the whole problem with fossil fuels, but what does that mean? They're fossils of plants, right? Which have gotten their energy from the sun, and then stored it, and then they die, and goes under the earth, and eventually becomes what we call oil. And that very energy that is used to drive the cars and do everything else is ultimately coming from the sun. So it's all coming from that, one body. So understanding the indestructibility of the consciousness is an important first step, as I mentioned before in these classes. And that is that it should change our whole perspective of what's important and what's important to strive for in this life. Because if everything we're striving for is related to this body, the physical body, as well as the mental body, the subtle body, that was another big revelation. I remember that we have two bodies. We have the gross body that we call the body, but there's also that subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego, which doesn't die when the gross body dies. And it's that body that so much is in the mind, the human mind, which forms the template of the next body that you're going to inhabit. So that means whatever you're doing, day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, is determining your fate. It's both in this body and in your next body. So therefore, in the human form, when we have intelligence, we can decide which path we want to go to. And it brings us back to the text 20, I think it is. Purushak prakatisto hi bhunkte prakati janganang karanang gunasangosya sarasa yoni janmasu. That this verse I always saw as the key verse in the Bhagavad Gita. The Purusha, which is the living entity who by nature is Prakriti, we're energy. That becomes very clear in chapter 7. That there's the dead energy, earth, water, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. And then those are apara Prakriti, but apade mitastranyam Prakriti vidime param. Besides this lower energy, this apara energy, this unconscious energy, there is also the higher energy, para Prakriti, which consists of us, the living entity. Jiva bhuta mahavaya idam dhyate jagat. So this word dhyate, we're familiar with. Giridhari, he's supporting holding up the hill. So this dhara, it's also the root of the word dharma, which is everything has an essential function, an essential nature. That is its dharma. I always point out, now we have these wonderful benches. And the benches are there to support you, right, in comfort. If it collapses when you sit on it, Joseph will be very upset. That's the first thing. He bought all these benches. But then it's a bench in name only. It's a fake bench, right? So we have a certain nature. God has a certain nature. Everything has its nature, and that is its dharma. So this we as the living entities are supporting this world. How is that? Well, think of our own little personal universe. As soon as we leave, due to vicissitudes of time, then the body is no longer supported, and it just reverts to its different constituents. Isn't it? Because it gets burned, and buried, somehow, dissolves. It's not really a body anymore. It's a corpse. So because the consciousness, we're sustaining it. So in the human form of life, back to this key verse, text 20, I believe, Purushak prakatisto hi bhunkte prakati janganan, that after all, the Bhagavad Gita is ultimately a normative text, means that it should guide us, 22, should guide us in how to act for our ultimate benefit. That's the great value of it, isn't it? So here he's describing our situation, at the bottom of page 553. Purusha prakatisto hi. Now the first thing is, the Purusha, that's us. But Krishna just says in the 7th chapter, we're Prakriti, para Prakriti. So what gives? Are we Prakriti or Purusha? That's the whole problem. We're Prakriti acting like Purusha. Prakriti is nature. It's meant to be enjoyed by Krishna. But we rebelled against Krishna. We're attempting to be the Purusha. Obviously, we're not the Parama Purusha, but we're Purushas nevertheless. And that's our whole problem. We're not, by nature, our dharma is not to exploit and enjoy the material energy. Our dharma is to be enjoyed by Krishna. And that brings us the greatest bliss, lasting happiness that can never be duplicated, because it's on the spiritual level, and the spirit is indestructible. We ourselves never die. So here he says, Purushak patisto hi. The Purusha, the living entity acting as an enjoyer, situated in material nature, bhunkte, here it doesn't really mean enjoy, but it means to experience, is prakriti jan gunan. He experiences the results of the gunas, the threefold material nature, generated from prakriti. And karanam guna sangosya, for him, for that individual soul, what is the asya? Of the living entity, yes. The association, guna sangha, is the cause of sadasad yoni janmasu, taking birth in a good body or a bad body. You know, the best place to take birth, of course, is not at all, it's the spiritual world, you don't take a birth. But if you're going to take birth, to be born in a devotee family, so that you can continue your devotional service and progress in devotional service. Very auspicious. And the worst one is some subhuman animal or insect, or God forbid some plant or something. There are out there, all those species, depending on our mentality. So this is where our free will comes in. With the first thing is to have the great fortune of having association of a sadhu, of acharya, someone who's realized, self-realized. So Prabhupada, at great effort, he provided his association in perpetuity through his books, through the recordings, through all the medias, but most importantly through his books. It's always available in so many languages. So then you can get knowledge. How should I, we don't think of it, how should I associate with the modes, but how should I act in each situation? How should I form my life? What should I do in order to take the best next birth? The best next birth is in the spiritual world, not even in the material world. So that's out there, that's possible, but it begins with, decisions, how you're going to spend this day, this hour, this minute. Are you going to pick up the beads and chant Hare Krishna, or are you going to deviate, go back to sleep? That's a choice we all have. So that is our free will in action. And if we make the right choice, then we'll become purified. Our existence will become purified. That's the whole idea. What is that famous verse by Lord Rishabdev? Nayam deho deha bhajang niloke krishtan kaman ardate vidbhujange tapo divyam bhutakaye nasatvam shuddye yasmad brahma saukyam tvanantam. It's such a wonderful verse. So he says, this is his first verse of instruction to his sons. He's going to retire and go, And so he says, in the human form of life, I put it into a little poem with it's not exactly, it's close to what Rishabdev has, it's a little more broad. It says, don't waste this precious human life, dear friend, by working hard for hoggish happiness. Through bhakti yoga, worldly life transcend and learn to taste divine love's endless bliss. So this is the choice we're given. Are we going to waste our life in hoggish happiness, means flickering sense gratification, and all that implies, which is a real degradation of the soul, and is a tragic waste of human life, or accept this injunction to perform divine austerity, tapo divyam. Now, how do we find out what that is? Consulting the books, consulting the sadhus, and we can easily learn what that is. This is an austerity. I know it's a big austerity to come here and listen to me. So you're performing severe austerities here. But the deities will be there. You can take prasadam, But the main thing is we're reading Prabhupada's books together. So that means it changes you. Whatever we do has its effect on our consciousness. As soon as we choose something in the mode of ignorance, then it has a certain effect. And it leaves an impression. And if we don't have good guidance and good association, then that'll become habitual. And we've been doing it for many, many, many lifetimes. But you're very fortunate to come in touch with a sadhu. That's why Lord Chaitanya says this famous verse, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koi, Lava Mata Sadhu Sange, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Association with sadhus, all the Shastra declare, even a moment's association, Lavamata Sadhu saying, Sarva Siddhi Hoy, can give all protection, give all perfection. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean that, you just read the book for 1 minute and you're done. Oh, I'm perfect. No, it doesn't work like that. It means that can plant the seed of interest, of faith, by which you'll pursue the process of devotional service and go through it and perfection. And okay, maybe it doesn't happen in one lifetime, but you can make substantial progress, and after billions of lifetimes, what's 3 lifetimes? You know what I mean? Lord Chaitanya has given a process that is easy. It's practical for all of us. That's why we can do it. So it all begins with this contact and the sparking of interest. You know, Prabhupada talks, I mean, there's this wonderful 2-verse mantra, as you say, or lesson that Rupa Goswami gives in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It's quoted in one purport here, maybe 2. Ahadar Shraddha Tatak Saru Sangha Tabhajana Kriya Tato Narta Nibhatisa Tato Nishta Ruchistata Ata Sakti Tata Bhava Tata Prema Abhyudanchati Sadhakanam Ayam Premna Prado Bhave Bhave Krama. This is the steps, this is the ladder from faith to love, the beginning to perfection of bhakti. He gives these steps. So the first thing is faith. But this isn't the pure faith that Lord Chaitanya describes to Sanatana Goswami later on. This is a preliminary interest and respect, Prabhupada says, which functions to bring you into the association of devotees. Now, of course, we all know that the modern electronics of everything are very much a two-edged sword. They can be very much a force for degradation, but they can also be a force for elevation. You see, if you get onto the right sites, you'll be there with a kirtan, with Bhakti Bringa Govinda Swami or Kadamba Kanana, who passed away a few weeks ago, but his kirtans are all still out there, you know. And so much other, you know, the ISKCON Desire Tree, you have so many recordings on there. So that's possible. That's also association. So that's planting the seed of interest. And then to bring you in the association, and let's face it, there's no substitute for personal association, for actual live association. So that's a sadhu sangha. Sadhu sangha. So what in the sadhu sangha, you're going to be affected, right? Sangat sanjayate kama is a description. I think I was dealing with this recently in my discussion with what is it? Shreyas, Preyas, and Sangha. So Sangha, as your senses and mind associate with the objects of the senses, which are all in different modes of nature, your likes and dislikes are formulated. That's the whole principle of advertising. They've become so expert at attracting you, you know, through your eyes, through your ears, and, you know, even through the smells if they can catch you, you know, baking, whatever. So, and plant a desire seed, which you then pursue. So, but if you're in the association of devotees, a very wholesome desire seed will be planted. Well, everyone is singing this mantra. Let me try it too. You know, let me try it. You know? And as soon as you start chanting, then Krishna starts really working from within, right? So the sadhu sangha, and if you really are open and receptive, and you have some pious credits in previous life usually, then you respond and says, well, I want to try to do this too. These people are so happy and seem more, you know, they're in a better place than I am. So let me try it. And I read that one book. It was very fascinating. So you start chanting, bhajan. And if you're serious about it, then the purification happens really quickly. And at a certain point, you want initiation. You want to be confirmed in the path and like that, you know. And so then you go on. And then there's this period of anartha-nivritti, which can take a long time, lifetimes. But if you're serious about it, you get to the point of nishta. It's described in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter. By hearing, Shinvatam Sakata Krishna Punnishavana Kirtana Vidanta. Krishna is purifying from within. And then, if everything goes well, Nashta Prayeshu, when the Abhadras, or one of the things in the heart are destroyed almost to nil, Prabhupada says maybe 70%, 75%. Then you get to the point of Nishta, which is Naishtiki Bhakti, which is, what did Prabhupada say, irrevocable devotional service. Very nice phrase. No one knew how to pronounce that word. It was always irrevocable. All right, we understood what he meant. You hear the tapes, you know. So that's real faith. That's the definition of faith that Lord Chaitanya gives. Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kohe Sudradhanishtroy Krishna bhakti korle sarva karma krita hoy. That real Shraddha, Nishtha Shraddha, is characterized by the firm conviction, unshakable conviction, that just by executing devotional service, all my aspirations in this life will be fulfilled. I'm realizing that this is really the central goal of my life. Everything else should serve that. Yes, I have to eat, maybe I have to work and all this stuff, but it feeds into my desire to progress in devotional service. That's Nishtha. A very good platform to be in. It's irrevocable. Irrevocable. And then, meanwhile, Ruchi is increasing. It's not that these are mutually exclusive. It's that, okay, finally got the Nishtha, now I can start tasting. No, the first kirtan, if you're fortunate, you'll get some Ruchi. There's some taste there, right? Or service or something, just seeing the deities, reading the books. There's some taste. But that's just the preliminary taste. That can get deeper and deeper and more intense the more pure you are. So that comes ruchi and then asakta, actual attraction to Krishna. And then it goes into bhava or real ecstasy and then prema. These are the higher levels of things. And it's all just a measure of purification. Because we are originally pure lovers of Krishna. That is our state. That is our original state. All these births we've been mucking around in the material world, we've been alienated from our real self. So now in the human form, we can understand these things. If we act on it, we can make good progress. So, back to our verse. Krishna is winding up the chapter, and he's pointing out that we as souls are illuminating our whole body, just as the sun illuminates this universe. And of course, we are only, conscious of our body, but the super soul is conscious of all bodies. And the super soul is our best friend. I mean, there's that famous analogy. Prabhupada always refers to the Upanishads, but there's actually a verse or two in the 11th canto describes the two birds in the tree. And we're the enjoying bird. We forgot all about the other bird. And we're trying to enjoy the fruits, which are sense gratifications, right? And the observing bird, the super soul, is just watching. When will he turn to me? When will he turn to me? So, after many births of fruitlessly trying to enjoy these fruits, we turn to the super soul. And in the human life, practically speaking, the super soul we can't access, but he's so kind that he comes externally. This is Lord Chaitanya's teachings in Sanatana also, through the realized spiritual master and the Shastra. And then that's the way Krishna is speaking to us. These verses that we're reading of Krishna, the Bhagavad Gita, that's the super soul talking to us. That's Krishna speaking to us directly. We should always remember that and revere, the Bhagavad Gita, honor it. Prabhupada with so much labor gave us the Bhagavad Gita as it is, explained it thoroughly, and so that when we read it, we can actually have it transform our lives. Haribol, Natalie. No, welcome back. We're finishing up chapter 13. We're on page 564. Okay, any questions on this verse? The soul and the illuminating this body like the sun illuminates the universe. All right, let's move on to text 35. Chaitra gayorevam andarang jnana chakshusha bhuta prakriti mokshang cha ye vidur yanti te param. Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain to the supreme goal. Purport. So Prabhupada, he summarizes the chapter. The purport of this 13th chapter is that one should know the distinction between the body, the owner of the body, and the supersoul. One should recognize the process of liberation as described in verses 8 through 12. Those are those 20 elements of knowledge. Then one can go on to the supreme destination. A faithful person should at first have some good association to hear of God and thus gradually become enlightened. If one accepts a spiritual master, one can learn to distinguish between matter and spirit, and that becomes the stepping stone for further spiritual realization. A spiritual master, by various instructions, teaches his students to get free from the material concept of life. For instance, in the Bhagavad Gita, we find Krishna instructing Arjuna to free him from materialistic considerations. One can understand that this body is matter. It can be analyzed with its 24 elements. The body is the gross manifestation, and the subtle manifestation is the mind and psychological effects. And the symptoms of life are the interaction of these features. But over and above this, there is the soul, and there is also the supersoul. The soul and the supersoul are two. The material world is working by the conjunction of the soul and the 24 material elements. One who can see the constitution of the whole material manifestation as this combination of the soul and the material elements, and can also see the situation of the Supreme Soul, becomes eligible for transfer to the spiritual world. These things are meant for contemplation and for realization, and one should have a complete understanding of this chapter with the help of the spiritual master. Thus end the Bhagavatam purports to the 13th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. So, any questions on the chapter? All right. Let us proceed. We can tip our toe into the next chapter. Chapter 14, the three modes of material nature. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Param Bhuya Pravakshyami Jnananam Jnanamuttamam Yagyatva Munayak Sarve Param Siddhi Mitogata. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Again I shall declare to you the supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection." Purport. From the 7th chapter to the end of the 12th chapter, Sri Krishna in detail reveals the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, the Lord himself is further enlightening Arjuna. If one understands this chapter through the process of philosophical speculation, he will come to an understanding of devotional service. In the 13th chapter, it was clearly explained that by humbly developing knowledge, one may possibly be freed from material entanglement. It has also been explained that it is due to association with the modes of nature that the living entity is entangled in this material world. Now, in this chapter, the Supreme Personality explains what those modes of nature are, how they act, how they bind, and how they give liberation. The knowledge explained in this chapter is proclaimed by the Supreme Lord to be superior to the knowledge given so far in other chapters. By understanding this knowledge, various great sages attained perfection and transferred to the spiritual world. The Lord now explains the same knowledge in a better way. This knowledge is far, far superior to all other processes of knowledge thus far explained. And knowing this, many attain perfection. Thus it is expected that one who understands this 14th chapter will attain perfection. Well, there's an inducement to continue reading. Maybe we should go on to the next verse. What do you think? But just one quick comment. You remember, I'm sure you remember, it was only like 5 minutes ago. Purushak prakatisto hi bhungate prakati. The verse I quoted in the 13th chapter, it's all about association with the modes of nature. How you choose to associate or disassociate yourself from them determines your destiny. That's what's really doing it. And so now we're going to learn more details of how these modes work and how to recognize them. What's in the mode of ignorance, what's in the mode of goodness, what's the mode of passion. And as Arjuna will explain at the end, what are the symptoms or characteristics of one who's transcended the modes, and how can one transcend the modes? And so at the end of this chapter, we get this key verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Mam chayova vicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samati chaitan brahma bhuye kalpate. One who practices abhyavichari bhakti, which means undeviating, unalloyed devotion, quickly transcends the modes of nature and comes to the level of Brahman, spiritual level, which we will learn in the 18th chapter. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma is a platform of bliss, and absence of any lamentation or hankering, and it's a platform for further understanding and realization of bhakti, yoga, perfection. So it's all going to be explained in this chapter, and there are many wonderful verses at the beginning, in the next chapter, text number 4, which maybe we can read. Krishna says, I am the creator of everything, all things. So let's go on. Idam jnanam upashritya mama sadharm yamagataha sargepi no prajayante pralaye na vitanti cha. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. Purport. After acquiring perfect transcendental knowledge, one acquires qualitative equality with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, becoming free from the repetition of birth and death. One does not, however, lose his identity as an individual soul. It is understood from Vedic literature that the liberated souls who have reached the transcendental planets of the spiritual sky always look to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, being engaged in His transcendental loving service. So even after liberation, the devotees do not lose their individual identities. Generally, in the material world, whatever knowledge we get is contaminated by the three modes of material nature. Knowledge which is not contaminated by the three modes of nature is called transcendental knowledge. As soon as one is situated in that transcendental knowledge, he is on the same platform as the Supreme Person. Those who have no knowledge of the spiritual sky hold that after being freed from the material activities of the material form, this spiritual identity becomes formless, without any variegatedness. However, just as there is material variegatedness in this world, in the spiritual world there is also variegatedness. Those in ignorance of this think that spiritual existence is opposed to material variety. But actually, in the spiritual sky, one attains a spiritual form. There are spiritual activities, and the spiritual situation is called devotional life. That atmosphere is said to be uncontaminated, and there one is equal in quality with the Supreme Lord. To obtain such knowledge, one must develop all the spiritual qualities. One who thus develops the spiritual qualities is not affected either by the creation or by the destruction of the material world. So this is, quite an inducement. It's like an invitation, and we find these all throughout the literature. That if you simply follow this, then you don't experience pralaye vitanti. It means you're beyond birth and death. Isn't there a book like that? Beyond birth and death. And to just contemplate that, as you get older, you can't ignore it. It's coming, When we all join, 20, 25. I was old at 25. And, birth, old age, disease, and death. Yeah, I don't want any of those things. But it's like, it's so far away, you don't really have to think. But it's not far away. Even when you're young, it can come at any time. We know that, the tragic, early deaths. But certainly as you get older, it's like, okay, it's not, you got to face it. But actually we should be thinking like that all the time, that at any moment death may come. What does it mean to be always chanting 24 hours a day? Well, okay, I guess it means that you're chanting, and when you go to sleep, you're chanting in your mind and sleeping and thinking of Krishna, dreaming of Krishna. You get up in the morning, it's time for Mangalarti. I wanted to go see Krishna. I remember what Krishna. In other words, the thought, if it is there, that's your protection. That's the most auspicious thing in your life, is your remembrance of Krishna. And what do we have in the Krishna consciousness movement? All kinds of ways of thinking of Krishna. And practically, cleaning his temple and cooking for him, what to speak of chanting his name, dancing, all of these things are related directly to Krishna. The wonderful art, the wonderful books, the wonderful devotees. Everyone's reminding you of Krishna. We're even supposed to remind each other of Krishna by the tilak, right? That's another way. So, which I think is like the original of which the tattoos are perverted reflection. Am I right? Because I mean, you're saying something with those tattoos, right? On this. So we're saying something with the tilak. We're devotees of Krishna. And you're reminding yourself in the mirror. Right? Yeah, go ahead.
Krishna.
Haribol.
Talking about tilak. So I was watching a YouTube video a couple months ago, and I did that for a few weeks. So
You
not
did what?
just tilak.
Oh, good.
So they also follow the process of
Yes, entire body. Yes,
entire body.
Sure.
So my follow-up question on that is it because the chakras get opened up when we apply it throughout the body, or was the
No.
specific reason?
Not at all. It's to sanctify your body as a temple of God, and so that you remember and that you remind others of that. This body is actually meant as a vehicle for service to God, and it kind of reminds people. How many times in the old days, maybe they know by now. They say, "What's that stuff on your forehead?" "Oh, that's tilak. It reminds we're devotees of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here, take this pamphlet." Like that. So it's an important sacrament, and there's is it 12 names? I forget the numbers. I think 12 different names of God. That you put on it. So it's just part of being a devotee. The diet, the lifestyle, and who you hang out with. Everything is your whole life. There's always a Krishna conscious way of doing everything: sleeping, eating, talking. Everything is fun, and this helps you remember and reminds others. So that's what the knowledge is meant to mature into different action. It does it anyway, and material knowledge does that. If you're always reading, dark novels or something, and then that's going to reflect in how you see yourself, how you see the world, and how you see others and relate to others. Yeah, exactly. Garbage in, garbage out. But I mean, it's a dangerous time. There are so many things going on that are this explosion in the internet, and the availability of knowledge, just in its most generic term. Even the little children, coming through the phones, it's disastrous. I'll tell you one story. I used to visit, and hopefully again can visit sometime, our farm in Florida, Alachua, Florida. There's a big community there, many devotees. And for years they had a school there. They had a girls' school, and the boys' school I think was elsewhere. But there was this wonderful devotee named Lakshmi Moni who was running the school. And then one year I came and the school was closed. And I asked her, why do they have to be closed? Said, the cell phones. All the girls had, if one girl has one cell phone, they all have to have, So after a while, they all had cell phones, and with the cell phones, you can text some of the guys in the brahmachari ashram, And so they couldn't stop it. It was too pervasive. And so they had to shut down the school. And because it's, that's one of the things. When I joined, there's no TV, no radio. There was the oil crisis, many of the early 70s. OPEC shut down the oil. Suddenly there's long lines. I found out about it by seeing that our Sankirtan vans couldn't go out. They couldn't get gasoline. Oh, what happened? Oh, there's some oil shock. Whereas before I joined, oh boy, the New York Times. Whoa, what a story that is. I'd be immediate. So you're kind of insulated from it. So that's a great advantage of living in a community where everyone is helping everyone else to become Krishna conscious, but it's all dependent on where you place your attention. If you have your attention, diverted because you don't have any guidance, you don't know the dangers. It can be because the modes of nature they have it. They're very attractive, all of this stuff. And it can just divert your consciousness and pollute your consciousness and plant desire seeds in there that you have to then pull out. It's weeds. So it's very much a question of how vigilant you are in how you direct your senses and regulate your life, so that everything you do is auspicious for your practice of Krishna consciousness. That's the summary of it. And Srila Prabhupada is giving it, and Krishna is giving us so much wonderful instruction in this chapter, how to recognize the modes. Oh, I don't want to do that. That's definitely the mode of passion and ignorance. Let me stay with the mode of goodness and the mode of pure goodness. And he's known to recognize the dangers. And then, you always have the chanting to come back to, which is transcendental to all the modes, and is uplifting your consciousness and helping to purify. So that's a great advantage. Okay, so we will resume that. Today is Tuesday, right? So we'll have one more day this week, and we'll continue with chapter 14. And in the meanwhile, we should have a little poem. Now, did I do the Kevalashtika recently? Yeah, I think many people who are here now didn't hear it. And you probably heard it before, but it's always worth. This is a wonderful poem about the holy name. We learned within the last few years that it's actually 8 verses picked from, I don't know what you call it, a 100-verse poem, Shataka. They may have been pulled out by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because the devotee who wrote this, who we didn't know who it was for years and years, it was all anonymous. His name Nilakanta Goswami, who was a contemporary of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur highly revered him and respected him. So here's this Kevalashtika, 8 verses about the holy name of Krishna. I'll try to do this, 1 or 2 Sanskrit. Mararam mararebhyopi mangalebhyopi mangalam pavanam pavanebhyopi hare namaiva kevalam. Of sweet things, it's the sweetest you will taste at any time. Of things that bring good fortune, it's the perfect paradigm. Of things that purify, it purifies most powerfully. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Brahmastamba parayantam savam mayamayam jagat satyam satyam punak satyam hare namaiva kevalam. From Brahma's realm atop the sky down to the lowly grass, illusion reigns in Maya Devi's treacherous morass. The truth, the only truth, the name of Shri Hari. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Swaguru sapita chapi samata bandhavopisa shiksheche dasmartam hare namaiva kevalam. He's the guru, he's the father, he's the friend most true. And she's the real mother who most kindly teaches you to always chant and hear the holy name of Shri Hari. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Nikshvase nahi vishvaso kadarudho bhavishyati kirtani mata balyad hare namaiva kevalam. Remember that our final breath may come at any time, no matter if we're old and sick or in our youthful prime. So young and old alike should chant the name incessantly. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Hari sadavase tatta yatra bhagavatajana ghayanti bhakti bhavena hare namaiva kevalam. Lord Shri Hari forever dwells wherever devotees, whose hearts are fixed on him and free of all impurities, uplift their voices high and sing his name in ecstasy. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Aho dukkam mahadukkam dukkha dukkataram yata kachartam vismatam ratna hare namaiva kevalam. Alas, what sorrow, what great pain, the worst calamity for people to forget the holy name of Shri Hari. Although the name's a priceless gem, mere broken glass they see. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Diyatam diyatam karno, niyatam niyatam pachaha, giyatam giyatam nityam, hare namaiva kevalam. Just fill your ears, just fill them with the name of Shri Hari. Just chant the name with all sincerity. Just sing the name, just sing the holy name eternally. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Forgot the Sanskrit for the last one. You know it? Hare Krishna. I remember the English, I think. It makes this world appear like bits of straw upon the Trini Kuchidikatsavam Rajadesa Kalopadi. Chidanandamaham Shuddham Harenam Kevalam. It makes this world appear like bits of straw upon the ground. Resplendently it reigns supreme, divinity and sound. It's filled with transcendental bliss and peerless purity. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Now this last verse is original to me. It's no Sanskrit. Inspired to glorify the holy name of Shri Hari, Shri Nilakanta wrote this hymn in Sanskrit poetry. I pray that those who hear this lowly version made by me will chant the holy name of Shri Hari in ecstasy. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. So let us adjourn and chant the holy name in ecstasy.